That's a clip from a powerful documentary that's going to be airing tonight at 8 p.m. on an Investigation Discovery Channel. It's called Sugartown. And it's about what we've been talking about a little bit earlier this morning. Victor White III, a 22-year-old man who authorities claim shot and killed himself while locked in a patrol car, handcuffed with his hands behind him. And nobody involved in that case was charged with any crime or penalty, correct?
That's correct.
With us today, we have Reverend Victor White, the father of Victor White III, who's here with us. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank y'all for having me.
Absolutely.
And we have Powell Lexing, who's a civil rights attorney who I've had a chance to be somewhat in around her work. She was on the Jenna 6 case, and I actually marched at Jenna 6 back in the day.
Right.
And so welcome to the show, guys. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Just briefly, I like to repeat the circumstances in which your son lost his life, because I think the more people hear it, the less they're able to rationalize this senseless death and realize how ludicrous it was, the explanation of how he came to his demise. Who was your son?
Well, Victor White III was energetic. He was a hard worker. Raised in the church.
Raised in the church,
junior deacon, and so that and helped in the neighborhood. Community service was part of who he was, and he would give you the shirt off his back. Those, like I said, if you see the video, it shows that him, saying whatever you want, those types of things. That's the type of person he was. He was very generous. He was he was the clown of the family, so every holiday, that's probably one of the most difficult parts of it there, is that every holiday, he was going to bring a prank. So so that impacts our family so deeply that every holiday we know you're still looking for him. And my kids will say that they're we still looking for him. And my wife will say we're still looking for him to come in with a grass sack over his head. Got holes poked out, stuff like that.
Yeah, and that was, and he's been gone since 2014.
That's correct.
Since 2014. So we're talking 4 years later, and we're still trying to find some form of justice in this case, right? What in your experience, Miss Lexing?
Yes.
Is it Miss or Mrs.? Miss? Okay. Can I call you Carol?
Sure.
Okay, Carol. Okay, there you go.
That's
All
even better.
That's even better.
Yeah.
You're a civil rights attorney, so you've seen things that only magicians can make up, I'm sure, in the court of law, how people are being found innocent or being charged with some of these crimes, especially when it's dealing with police departments. Have you seen anything more ludicrous than this?
I have not. I coined the phrase the Houdini handcuff case because short of being Houdini, it's no way that little Vic could have shot himself in the chest while handcuffed behind his back when pictures still show his hands are behind his back. And that's completely ludicrous.
Completely ludicrous. Now, you have a police department that is swearing that they did not murder your son, that this was a suicide. Can you tell us the chain of events that led up to his death as you learned it?
Sure. They, my son called me that night, Leonard LC. They called me that night and said that the police had arrested Lil Vic. So I called the sheriff's department that night, about 11:40 or so. They told me they didn't have him in custody. And then I called the jail, and they said they didn't have him in custody. I even asked them were they en route. They told me no. So, me and my wife, I said they probably let him go. Went to sleep. 5:41 Monday morning, we get a call, LC, saying that Lil Vic is dead, saying that the detective came, got him, said he was dead. So, we get to go, and I live 2 hours away from New Iberia, so I called the sheriff department again. Well, they did the same thing. We got the runaround all over again. Then finally, Katie Morrell of the Louisiana State Police Criminal Investigation Division, she calls me and tells me that my son is dead and that we need to hurry up and come to New Iberia, but be careful. So I didn't tell my wife, got everybody up and said we're going to New Iberia to check on Lil Vic.
Why did she say be careful?
Well, I'm not sure, because after that, we had limited conversation with them. They didn't give us any other information. They kept saying it was under investigation. Even when I asked her on the phone what happened to him, she said she couldn't tell me. It's under investigation. So, we get to New Iberia, then I tell my wife that, Lil Vic that they killed him. You know, I said they killed him, not knowing at the time, but because of, you know, kind of like the history. And so, and LC said the police wouldn't tell him any information. You know, so we get there, call Katie Morrell again, and so she says that my son was killed. Well, okay, well, couldn't you tell me how my son was killed? Kept saying no. So I said, well, I want to see my son's body. She said, well, no, your son, as we speak, his body's on the way to the Louisiana Forensic Lab for an autopsy. I'm saying, wait a minute, well, how did y'all identify him? She said, by state-issued ID. So then I said, well, no, ma'am, that's kind of, you know, no, I want to see him, make sure it's my son. So she told me, so about an hour later, it took an hour. It took an hour, then she called me back, said, well, the coroner will meet you there, but it's a stipulation. You can only see him from the neck up. You know, and I told her, you know, I perform the rights of many people, and you know, but I said so. And then she said, here's the other one. Only one person can go back. So that eliminated my wife from actually going back to.
Why? Is this standard procedure, Carol?
Will not let his mom see. No, that's not standard procedure. The parents should have had a right to go and identify the body of their child. They should have been allowed to go in there to identify and to see their child.
The fact that they asked not that you can only see him from shoulders up. Were you suspicious that something happened at that time?
Yes, sir. See, that's what, you know, that started everything at that point when she told me that. At first I was reluctant, but I had to comply so I could see and make sure it's my son. And then when the coroner came, also the Lieutenant Trahan, which was the supervisor of the case, so they came. And so when we go back, and like first thing I seen in my son, I seen his eye turn inward. He had a mark that went from the top of his eyebrow, the left eyebrow, all the way down past his jawbone.
Like he'd been assaulted.
Yes, I knew that. And then his lips was big, and you could see the blood, how swollen that was. So I know that he was beat. You know, so then I asked him right there, what happened to my son? So one looked at the other. The state trooper said, well, you got to ask the coroner. Then the coroner said, you got to ask the state trooper. And they both sitting there looking at each other. You know, so then, you know, then they tell me to leave, and as I was going up to perform the last rites of my son, you know, they're going to tell me, no, you can't touch his body. You know. I'm saying, okay, so what happened to him? You know, no one tell me. Did the last rite. Walked out as we was walking out. There was a third person in there. Asked me, how did my son get to the hospital? You know, and so that's why Lieutenant Trahan said, no, don't worry about that. So that's when, you know, signed the papers, and then we left with my wife. She was actually, they had sedated and admitted in the hospital while we was there.
And you know, the sad part about the whole situation is, while Reverend White and Mrs. White were trying to find out what happened to their child, on their way going back to Alexandria, Louisiana, because no one would ever tell them specifically what happened, the Louisiana State Police released a statement trying to get ahead like they always do, and they tried to villainize the victim, tried to villainize Lil Vic by saying that he had shot himself in the back while he was handcuffed behind his back, and that he had been involved in a fight, and he had drugs on him, and tried to paint this horrendous picture that didn't exist. And so that was not, you know, that wasn't right, because Reverend White and his wife had to find out over the internet what they were saying happened to his son when they couldn't look him in the eye and tell him what they thought at that particular time, whether it was right or wrong, what happened to their child. They had to try to jump out there, and they painted this erroneous and this picture that did not exist.
Yeah.
Because the coroner report came back 5 months later and said, oh, no, he didn't shoot himself in the back. He shot himself in the chest while still handcuffed behind his back while sitting in the back seat of the Iberia Parish police cruiser.
Listen to what she just said. The police claimed he shot himself in the back. The coroner's report came out, what, 6 months later? 5 months later? And said, nah, he didn't do that. The bullet entered the chest?
Yes.
And came out the back? Or
no,
there wasn't even no back wounds?
Right.
There were no bullet wounds in the back, and that's the problem, because as a Louisiana State Trooper should know the difference between whether or not a person has a bullet hole in the back. We as lay people can look at someone that's been shot and to see whether or not they have a hole in their back. He absolutely had no holes in his back.
But you were told by the police department that he shot himself in the back while handcuffed with his hands behind his back.
That's
Actually,
the
we wasn't told. I seen a friend of mine. They didn't tell us anything.
Okay.
By the time I got home, the 2-hour drive, a friend of mine, Pastor Darren Sophus, called me and said, "Man, you need to go and look at the Louisiana State Police website. There's a press release out about your son." So when I get the press release, it said that my son was involved in a fight on Lewis Street, and that not only was he involved in the fight, that when they came back from the store, they said that he become uncooperative. And I knew that right then and there. Like I said, they were trying to set the narrative. And prior to me actually going back, that's when I called the radio show host Eyes Open with Tony Brown, because I wasn't going to let them, and he was on there, I wasn't going to let them set the narrative, because prior to my son's death, there was 8 other unexplained deaths that happened, in custody deaths, that happened under this sheriff's watch.
Okay. Who is the sheriff?
Louis Ackle. Same
Louis
sheriff.
Ackle.
Yes.
New Iberia?
New Iberia, Louisiana. And he's
Parish.
still sheriff right now. Iberia Parish Sheriff is right now. Iberia Parish Sheriff, he's still sheriff. He got reelected.
He got reelected while being indicted? Or
Yes.
Yes.
While being indicted,
Yeah.
he got reelected.
Yeah, but there's a history behind that.
Yes. And see, in 2006, the reason why I went down to New Iberia, it was under the sheriff Sid Abear. At the time of Iberia Parish, it was Sid Abear. In the 2006 Sugarcane Festival, which they have a white sugarcane festival, then there's a black sugarcane festival.
Yeah.
Have a
Where the
brown
black
sugar.
sugarcane festival, they tear gassed the women, children, and people because they wanted them to disperse. So they tear gassed them. So they called me down to go and mediate and try to improve the relationship between the sheriff's department and the citizens of Iberia Parish. That's how I got there. And as we was working on that, well, 2008, Louis Ackle gets elected sheriff, comes in we had a community center where we're providing mentorships, we're providing tutoring and substance abuse counseling plus substance abuse prevention. Well, he looked at me in my face and he told me, well, I'm going in a different direction. Those individuals down in there, as I said, they were living on streets called Tupelo, Mississippi, Arkansas. I was trying to get the people to realize, do y'all realize the significance of these streets? Why they got y'all in this corner? But yet and still, they were too afraid.
They was too afraid.
And they're still afraid today.
And that's how he got elected, because he instilled fear and intimidation into the community, and the community did not get out and vote, and he got his base out to vote. And so therefore that's how he ended up getting reelected, because that's the type of person that he is.
How long you been practicing law?
I've been practicing law, oh my God, for almost 30 years, or maybe a little over 30 years. Don't want to reveal my age, but I've seen some things, and that sheriff's office is the most corrupt office, I would dare say, not only in Louisiana but in the United States.
In the United States.
Yes, in the United States. But I want to get back to have the listeners to understand that the Louisiana State Police released a statement. Their press release said that he had shot himself in the back, when that was erroneous. That was not true.
That was a lie.
Yes.
Bold-faced lie.
Started off as a lie.
In front of the public. And we talk about this because you think about Trayvon Martin or the Alton Sterlings or the Eric Garners or the Oscar Grants, and we got to keep your son's name, Victor White III, in this conversation as well, even though it's 4 years later. What needs to happen to our justice system, do you think? What needs to happen in this dynamic between our police departments and our community? What are you seeing as you fought this case?
Wow, there was so many discrepancies. There was just so much injustice going on with this case. It's just hard to pinpoint. But what I would like to see, or what we would like to see, is that the police having more diversity type of sessions and more sensitivity sessions with the community, and get involved in the community that they're working in, so maybe they won't be afraid of African Americans. So they won't be afraid and know how to actually handle the people that they're supposed to be out there protecting and serve. They're supposed to be serving and protecting and serving instead of terrorizing the community. And we just feel that if they could get the adequate training, and a part of that training should be some type of sensitivity, diversity training that will at least help out with them knowing when they go out in their community that they'll get to know the community, because people like the police.
Yeah.
And we like the police. We just want the police to start being and treating us with some form of justice, instead of treating us like we are less than human.
Yeah. Do you think that's possible? It sounds like it's a lot of racial divide, but as it is throughout this whole country. When you look at the climate, what we're seeing going on every level, from sports to politics, we're seeing it. Is it possible? Because sometimes you got, people behind badges who are just inherently bad, evil people who aren't trying to be fair to folks because they're not of the same race.
Right, and we want those police officers to purge the bad apples, to get rid of officers that they know are bad apples. Everybody know who the bad person is in the circle that they travel, in the profession that they're in. And so when you don't purge the bad apples, you're just as guilty as they are. You cannot have a blue wall of silence that keep perpetrating excessive force and brutality upon a race of people, all because of their race. That is just totally wrong. I mean, we've already gone through slavery. We don't need this in the 21st century.
Yeah.
And so we need to basically stay on these police officers, these DA, be mindful who you put in office, who you're voting in office, stay on them, and to keep them abreast of who we are, and put the pressure on them to have those type of training sessions, and to be more sensitive to our
same
community.
thing. Citizen review boards.
Yeah.
They should have citizen review boards. That we should, the citizenry of that should be involved, and not only that, we should have community police. I'm saying, going back to the way it was when that officer walked the beat. He knew who Miss White was. He knew who Miss Jones was, and Miss Jones understood him. And so when it didn't see him, he go knock on the door, and nobody was feared. It wasn't so fearful. So those are the things that really needs to start happening. And that also that we as a nation, not just in small town USA where we come from, but as a nation, it's not just happening there. But there's more media. See, media. We didn't get media coverage from where the local media didn't want to touch that because the sheriff's department, that's the tax base there. But the sheriff sets it. He sets the tax base, so therefore they're paying the radio station, television station. See, so it's very difficult. So I believe that if we come together as a whole, right, and then we need to look at citizen guidelines. African Americans, the citizen guidelines, man, they're horrible. So we need to look at that and revamp that because it could be a nonviolent crime and they get life.
Yeah, and they get life.
And we
for
must
a
stop
nonviolent
that
community.
throughout the country.
Yeah.
We must have not only a citizens review, but of course we have to have criminal justice reform in those areas.
Criminal justice reform. This documentary is called Sugartown. It's premiering tonight at 8 p.m. on Investigation Discovery. We have Reverend Victor White is here. Civil rights attorney Carol Powell Lexing is here. I want to open up the phone lines too, 888-742-3345. Imagine this: if you have a son, you have a brother, if it's your husband, you're just a friend, a boyfriend, whatever the case may be, stepped out to go to the store one night, to obtain whatever it is he was going to obtain. It was a fight at the store, apparently. Your son had nothing to do with it. Cops were in the area, pulled him over, stopped him, and questioned him. And then illegally, he said he had nothing to do with it, then illegally frisked him, right?
That's right.
Right? And because of what they claim they found in his pocket, handcuffed him, all right, and took him to be arrested. Was he ever arrested?
Yeah, he was arrested.
He was
placed under arrest when he was placed in the back seat of that police car. He was illegally arrested. He should never have been arrested.
Okay.
If the police officer was satisfied that he was not involved in that fight, he should allow Lil Vic and his friend to continue on their way.
And they were satisfied that they had nothing to do with the fight that was at the store.
On the oath and the deposition that I did with the officer, he admitted that he was satisfied. He had nothing to do with the fight. He didn't have any fight marks on him or anything. And at that point, he should have allowed Lil Vic to go on about his business. And if he had, we probably wouldn't be here discussing this.
Did Little Vic make it into the police station?
No, he didn't.
No, he did not. That's the problem. They took him to the back parking lot in the darkest part of the parking lot at the police station, which is known as the blind spot. And it's known as the blind spot because they normally take people that they have arrested back there and they beat them up and do bad things to them, which they shouldn't have. He should have been taken to what's called the Sally Port if you're booking somebody so that he could be booked to get out. And they took him to a very dark area. And not only that, the police officers turned off his cameras that were inside the car that would have revealed this so-called alleged suicide that does not exist.
No, they did that on purpose.
Of course they did that on purpose.
They were hiding the truth.
Yes.
And I'm asking people to put themselves in this position. Imagine Victor White the third being your family member, your brother, your uncle, your father, your man, your whatever. Imagine that person being somebody you know, and these events took place, and he never made it inside the police station, and they claim he committed suicide and shot himself in the back. And then you see an autopsy report that shows totally opposite of that. And then the folks get tried, the police officers get tried, and they're not convicted of anything.
Well, the sheriff is indicted,
okay.
and they have his trial.
Yeah.
He's the only person that didn't get convicted, but
Okay.
there were 11 deputies that pled guilty because of
they
excessive force and brutality, not directly related to our case. But see, our case opened the door up for these other cases where they had used excessive force on inmates and put the dogs on them and beat them up, took them in the chapel and beat them up, and did all kinds of bad things. And they had some of those things were on video, and so it allowed the feds to come in and actually get indictments. Now, because we didn't have a video, remember, the police officer didn't turn his video on while Lil Vic is in the backseat of the car. We had no video, and with the feds, it's a very high bar to prove the case if you don't have the direct related evidence of actually seeing them committing the particular crime. Well, they had videos of the other crimes that they committed, and they were able to secure convictions where the 11 deputies pleaded guilty to excessive force of beating African Americans up and doing all kinds of bad things with that sheriff's office.
I'm gonna open up these phone lines, and I ask you to imagine Victor White III being a relative or friend of yours. You don't have to be black to imagine this. You could be white. You can be Asian. You could be anything. Be anything. It don't matter. You ain't got to put a color on you. It ain't about your color. It's just, all right, it's about who you are. It ain't about race. And you got any questions, 888-742-3345. Sugartown is premiering tonight at 8 p.m. on Investigation Discovery Channel. Make sure you watch it. We'll take your phone calls. Victor White is here. Reverend Victor White is here. Civil rights attorney Carol Powell Lexing is here as well. There's a documentary tonight called Sugartown. At 8 p.m. on Investigation Discovery. You should watch it. You definitely should watch it and put yourself in the shoes of the family members of Victor White III, a 22-year-old man who authorities claim shot and killed himself while locked in a patrol car with his hands cuffed behind his back. First explanation they were given was that he shot himself in the back. We found out later in a police statement, as well as from a coroner statement that there was no bullet wounds in the back. There's no evidence of what happened to Victor White III because the police in question turned off their cameras. He never made it inside of the police station because he was parked in the back of a parking lot in an area that they call the blind spot because there's no way of seeing what's going on back there. You know, and as a result, he lost his life. These people who were involved were indicted, right?
They was a part of that sheriff's office.
Okay.
Pretty much got indicted.
For
using excessive force on other inmates and arrestees.
10 of those deputies were incarcerated.
And they pled guilty. So this department has a deep-rooted history of misconduct.
Oh, they went nigger knocking. They, once a week, the sheriff gave them permission to go into once a week in order to take back the so-called keep the oppressed oppressed. He would have them go in there once a week and go nigger knocking.
Go nigger knocking? Is that what they called it?
And that's what they call it.
Oh, my God.
And where the sheriff encouraged, condoned, and incited his deputies to treat African Americans like animals because that's how he felt about us.
And this is the sheriff that's currently serving now?
That's correct.
This is the sheriff that's currently serving now that you all will see on the documentary Sugartown tonight on the Investigation Discovery Channel.
In New Iberia.
New Iberia, Louisiana.
Sheriff
Sheriff Lewis Alco.
Wow. So was there any pushback once they found out that this documentary was happening? Did anyone attempt to try to stop it so they could save face coming from like the police department?
Well, all they do is they tell folks you can prepare to hear lies. That's basically what they do. Or they'll send the messages through others that is untruth, but one thing about it, you'll be able to see for themselves. So we appreciate our Investigation Discovery channel because the truth's gonna come out and everybody gonna get a chance to see it. So as again, we just didn't let them set the narrative because we will let them set the narrative. The first thing they try to do is demonize my son,
Right.
and we weren't gonna allow that to happen. So and again, even when they searched, they looked, it wasn't nothing really that they could find.
Okay.
Miss Carol, so I was watching. I got to see the documentary yesterday, and there's going to be an exchange shown tonight with you and Louis Acko. How did you prepare for that exchange? Did you expect that aggressive reaction he gave you?
I expected a certain amount of aggressiveness from him, but I didn't realize it was going to get to that level because you have to understand I'm trying to seek the truth. I'm trying to get to the bottom and still maintain my professionalism. And I did not expect the train to go off the track, but the train went off the track and it was just one of those things. And Acko is a piece of work. Yeah, he is a real piece of work that ought not still be the sheriff. And hopefully one day he will, justice will roll down like a mighty string, like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said.
I was just curious. I mean, because now that it's been established that nobody was charged with any wrongdoing or criminal crime, what are your options after the trial comes and everything is just kind of left in
Limbo.
Yeah, in limbo, where you just kind of don't know where to go afterward?
Well, the reason that we are still fighting the good fight today is because we want to keep that spotlight turned on that type of injustice and hoping that at some particular point in time that the powers that be will be held accountable, mainly Louis Acko will be held accountable for his misdeeds.
Right, and that's my fight. That's my fight. That's my mission today. Because as a result of my son's death, my son was my legacy. That's why it should have been. My son should have been my legacy, but today I become my son's legacy. So therefore, no matter what happens, right, I'm going to continue to fight because now I have a brand new mission. See, and now my mission is to point out these injustices and people like myself, those that wouldn't say anything. That wouldn't say anything, that sits back and because of my faith and because I am a man of faith and I really believe that God is going to do just what he did before. That he's going to bring these things to light. But yet and still, so I have to stay out in the forefront. So now I have a new mission as a result of it. I've been catapulted, into this position. Didn't volunteer for this position, but because of my son's death, I have to take the challenge of this position, and the challenges that we are faced with on a day-to-day basis, right, is that these killings are still going on.
Yeah.
See, so therefore, it's up to me and people like me to stand forward. There's a lot of us that are in this fraternity, this sorority that we didn't ask to be in. Fathers of unarmed killing, our children, mothers of unarmed killing, their children. So therefore, we got to come together, and we need the support of every community, not just the one we come from, but we need it from every community. We need to come together and take on this as a whole, because if we want to facilitate change, we need to be the change that we want to see.
Yes.
And we don't want people to come complacent and thinking this is the new normal, what's going on throughout the country with these police brutality cases, and you're seeing officers getting off left and right. We don't want that to become the new normal. We still have to keep the fight going and keep the pressure on. We got to stay woke, people.
Got to stay woke. We got Kevin on the line from Georgia. Kevin, good morning. How you doing?
Hey, Kev.
How you doing, Sway? I'm a black man, and I'm just going to jump right in. I keep hearing black people say justice this, justice that. How do you feel you can get justice in a system that don't even consider you a human? A system that was designed to suppress and oppress your people. It considers you a nigger. And the second question is, we keep hearing people saying there's good police in the system. I mean, in my neighborhood, I could tell you who's who and who's not. These police, the black police that are on these forces, they know who the bad apples are, and they turn a blind eye to it. They just had in Chicago, a truck full of Nikes in a black community around poor kids. Like, they're not going to go snatch, with the door open, mind you, like they're not going to go snatch Nikes out of a truck and they poor, hungry, disenfranchised youth. They're not doing that in a white neighborhood. Okay. And the black cops are standing there looking stupid.
Okay. How would you respond to that, Carol, in terms of how can you expect justice in a system that wasn't designed to be just towards people like us?
Well, we're going to always expect justice. I mean, just because what we're looking at is just what I just said. We expect justice. We expect us as a voice to come out, and having a voice is dealing with going out and voting and putting the people in office that's going to be more sensitive to our communities. And that's where justice, see, justice is only good as the people that you put in office. And if you're putting bad people in office, you get bad results. You get no justice. But if you put the right people in office, you may end up and you may possibly receive some sense of justice. Yeah, the system was designed against us, but we've always fought the system. And I can tell you from the Genesis, we fought that system and we beat the system. And I have no doubt that if we keep on going, that we can beat this system of what we're in as today. That's the purpose of us. And that's the reason why I said we don't need to become complacent with that, thinking that the system is designed so there's no hope. Yeah, it is hope. Vote for the people that's going to be sensitive towards your community. Stay on these people, and you'll get the results that you
and
want.
Vote the ones out. That we were talking about the individuals out there. What they're not doing what we want them to do, then we collectively need to come together. Because, see, again, a part of the reason why we are where we are is because we don't vote. Or we got felonies, and then yet and still we don't seek ways to get out that we can vote. You know, you get on probation and you think that's the end of all. It's not the end of all. You see, so therefore, if we in the community, we need to go be going out there like we did. We went and did a voter registration drive. You know, so therefore, we want people in. We got to get somebody on our side. But then we need to go on. We need to be vetting those individuals that are in there as a whole. Yeah. But, you know, it can't be no one or two people saying that we're going to go up against the whole system. We already know the system is rigged, and so we can't go around acting like we don't know. So therefore, being as we do know, we need to get some people that's willing to fight, a good fight, go, and we're going to go to any length. Because the thing is, if we won't change, we have to effect our own change. We can't be sitting around here waiting on somebody to make change happen for us.
What about his question about black cops or all cops reporting the bad cops?
Well, it doesn't matter whether you black or white. We have to make sure that blue wall of silence come down.
Okay. I'm going to take some more callers. We got Royce and Cali. Real quick. Go ahead, Royce. What's your question?
My question is for the lawyer. With this case being 4 years old, did you ever have any communications or contact with Eric Holder to maybe get it more on a federal investigation going?
We did have a federal investigation going. And the answer to your question is yes, not only Eric Holder, but the U.S. attorney that came after
Sessions.
Mr. Holden.
Yeah.
And we did have a federal investigation. The Justice Department came back and said that they did not find any evidence of any wrongdoing because there is such a high bar. In other words, they would have to have had a video in order to catch them basically in the act of using excess force and basically killing Lil Vic. We didn't have that type of evidence. So therefore, the Justice Department said that they could not prosecute him as it relates to the killing of Victor White III. Now, what they did do while they were investigating our case is when they uncovered and opened up all the other evidence of excessive force that they had used on other inmates and arrestees. So we got a sense of justice on one hand in making sure that we got the spotlight shined upon them and that the corruption was exposed, the high level of corruption at that office was exposed. So we didn't directly get results, but we indirectly got some results.
And once again, like I said, we contacted Jeff Sessions. When Jeff Sessions was in to ask him to reopen the case based upon the thing that had taken place, and he told us they were not going to relitigate anything that had been done.
Right.
Jeff Sessions, the current.
Even though there was more evidence.
Attorney General.
Correct.
Yeah.
Even though there was more evidence, he told us they weren't going to do it.
Yeah, Jeffrey Beauregard Sessions did not want to get involved. And we had contacted U.S. Attorney Loretta Lynch after Eric Holder.
Okay.
And,
which Eric Holder came down to Louisiana. He actually came down to Lafayette.
Right. But the
mattered
bar
to him.
as it relates to
It
those
mattered to
federal
him.
investigations, they require, like I said, you would have to actually have videos to catch these people in the act of doing.
Sure. We were told that only 2% of the people, if they come on the police department, only 2% of them are even brought before the grand jury because the bar is set so high. Because all they have to do is, those famous 5 words, I feared for my life. That's all they have to say.
That's all they have to say.
Yeah, I call it the magical words.
Sheriff Acko, what's his current status now?
Well, he's still sheriff.
He's still sheriff.
He is still the sheriff today.
He's free of this?
He's roaming around as we speak.
Okay, so this documentary is airing tonight at 8 p.m. on Investigation Discovery. It's called Sugartown. and you don't have to be out here. So I appreciate you guys being out here fighting the good fight, bringing awareness, and as long as we have platforms, you got a place you could come up here and share this information with the people. As you see, we have people who will call in from all over the country and different parts of the world. Everybody don't see everything the same.
Yes.
Right.
And that listen to our show. Some folks might feel totally different
Yes.
than others, but we allow them a platform to speak. Mr. White, Reverend White, in closing, what would you like to come from this documentary, and for these listeners that are listening now, what would you want them to know?
Well, again, we think we're very thankful to Investigating Discovery. This is what I would like individuals to see if Sugartown. This is my hope, my prayer, that when individuals see it, there are going to be some of us that's going to cry. You're going to see some that get angry, but I want to see individuals get motivated.
Yeah.
Motivated for change, motivated to get up and do something, because we all know someone that has suffered from police brutality and excessive force, and yet still we're sitting on the sideline. So I am hopeful to those parents that don't want to say anything, that know that these atrocities have happened to them, that they will come forward, give them strength as we gain strength to come forward and let someone else know, just because we're in a small town, USA, does not mean that we're going to give up. We're going to give up the fight, but we're going to take the fight to them.
Well, thank you, man. And then my prayers and support go out to your family.
Thank you.
Your other children as well. And Miss Lexing, thank you very kindly.
Yes.
You guys could come back again too. So as you
Thank you.
continue to talk about this, you're always welcome to come up here. Okay. Is there any place they could reach you? Folks want to talk more about this? Social media, maybe Facebook. Or,
Yes, Just for Victor White on Facebook. Just for Victor White. And then you have Just for Victor White 3 Twitter. And also, again, we have the Twitter. We have there's the number 318-730-9757, 318-730-9757.
I ain't heard a phone number like that in a long time, man. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Justice for Victor White on social media. Justice for Victor White 3 on Twitter.
Yes.
Guys, thank you for coming by. I appreciate it. And we'll keep talking about this. And I want to encourage all our citizens to make sure you watch it. We got a lot of people on the phone lines. You can hit them up directly. You have any questions, or you can leave voicemails 888-742-3345. Up next, man, who we got, DB?
Wyatt Russell.